Hey, Hot Nerd Nation. Welcome back for another exciting episode of a Hot Nerd Network's Power Recap. I'm your host, Hot Nerd D, and today we're going to dive deep into the second episode of Power Book 4, Force Season 2, Episode 2. So I have my exciting and ever amazing Hot Nerd Chimana here with me. So we're going to go ahead and get started. But first, before we go, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe because you don't want to miss a single recap. So, again, let's jump in it with Chamani. Yes. So here to first start off with a quick recap to get everyone sped up into what's happening. So last episode truly ended with a bang, literally and figuratively, because Tommy ended up taking out Chewie, a member of treason. So that put Jenard's crew, wanting to seek revenge, out for revenge for him, which they did act on. That we'll definitely touch on later. Uh, the Flynn family is still struggling to make payments to Dublin. They agreed to sell a bad batch of pills in order to recoup some of their loss, which has Walter definitely scrambling to make a plan for Claudia and Vic to help him save the family business. He ends up picking Victor to run the project, which further increases the tensions with the father with Walter and Claudia. So we'll definitely see how that continues to unravel. And while Tommy was doing business with Miguel, the Serbs attempted to take out Miguel, and Tommy ends up saving his life, which now puts him in a more favorable position that him and Diamond definitely leverage for CBI's advantage. So and what kind of like led or ended off in the episode is that we definitely get more information now into the Fed's plan with their investigation with Tommy. If they're able to connect him to the cartel, that could be instrumental for their cases, and who knows what can truly unravel from there. So, yes, we have a lot to talk about, and want to first start off with you, Chimani. What were some things that really hit you hard, or like what really stood out to you for this episode?
Well, first, I'm happy to be here. I stan all Power Universe. So, um, for this particular episode, what got to me and what I admire is that the show highlights a lot of societal issues. It shows how the Black community can be viewed by other people, by the police, by other drug dealers from different races. And the title of this episode was Great Consequence. And we saw that. I think the part that touched me the most was when that little girl, she was a consequence of everything that has taken place so far. And so um, I think that part highlighted the whole show, pretty much saying, all the things that are going on behind the scenes, whether it's with the cops, drug dealers, whatever, someone who had nothing to do with any of that suffered the greatest consequence, which was her life. And so um, I think that's something that we can obviously delve deeper into, but that's what
For
touched.
sure. No, I definitely agree. I think that when they hit the child, like that was like a pause moment, like where we start to see like the ramifications and the consequences, like you were talking about, as to what can truly happen from engaging in these activities or being in this sort of business or being involved in this industry where it's like, wow, like in real time, like I can see like what is happening on the back end, or just what can happen, has happily, like um, while we're doing these things. So I'm definitely glad that you touched on that point, because it brought me back to when Raina passed in the original Power series, like where it's just like, when you take out someone that's so innocent, that truly just has nothing to do with the entire business or industry at all, it's like, wow, now we can really, you know, dive deep into those consequences and really feel them too. I think that that was a moment for the audience to truly feel like what can happen with everything going on.
Yeah. Great
Yes.
point, because Raina had nothing to do with what happened to her. So,
Right. And then you also brought up another good point too with like police relations, and with the African American community, and how, there's definitely a lot of layers, and very much well can be tension with that. And so it was good to see in that first scene for that cop to really like check his partner, like when he wanted to just characterize their community as you people, or
Mhm.
and just kind of other them. He humanized them again to say, like, you have no idea how they operate, in their environment, how they operate in their community. So instead of just trying to pass judgment, like, understand where they're coming from, understand their ways of living, and understand, the true factors that go into that. And then you'll start to see, like, why, they do what they do, or like why the things that are happening are actually happening. Um,
I think that's a great first step. I mean, something that the police system can look into training instead of, like you said, just othering them. Look at their culture, figure out why they behave this way, why people don't want to snitch, the consequences behind that. Even the homeless man, I mean,
mm,
what the lieutenant had to do to get, information from him. He knew everything. He saw everything. And just like in I think Power Book 3, there was a homeless man who saw everything as well. These people
yes,
see what's going on. And so that lieutenant knew that, he understood that, and he got the information that he needed. So
right.
I thought that was a good scene to start the conversation of how can we bridge a better community between the police and the black community. And
Hmm.
also, while we're talking about police, the black cop, we saw how he was able to de-escalate a situation
Yeah.
versus, because he had every right to like fire, because of Vic going behind his back. It looked like he was going to pull out a gun. He had every right. He
Mhm.
felt the fear and this and that, but he used a taser. He
Mhm.
de-escalated the situation. So I think these are topics that this episode highlighted very well.
No, I definitely agree. Like, seeing the shift in the dynamic when you really understand who you're dealing with, and, can act accordingly. Like, even the cop in the first scene, or when he was talking to the witness, like, spoke his language. Like, if you want something, like, you have to understand how to get it, or how to approach someone for that. If he just put him under arrest and, force him to speak, that's not putting him in a favorable position to want to reciprocate. But when he pulled out the money, he's like, okay, now I do have memory all of a sudden
He took
of
that.
what happened. So again, just humanizing the situation, understanding who you're talking to, and then knowing how to, escalate the situation, and kind of what force, uh, quote unquote, haha, that's funny, what would be actually appropriate. So definitely agree with you there. And those were definitely some heavy hitter moments too that got to me as well. And especially with the child, just taking that pause, like, okay, now we get to see, like, how everyone will react, like, even people that aren't involved, like, even the community, um, like, could be more like vocal because a child, like an innocent group, or an innocent bystander, it's going to raise a whole level, another level of attention that possibly may be good for others, may not be good for others, but definitely something unexpected, but a very real, and very, like, a very real occurrence. And
Yeah,
for
something to the little brother or older brother. Watched his sister. They showed that scene where he just stared at her, and we
that.
don't know
Mhm.
what's brewing in his mind. Whether what direction does he want to take it now? Does he want revenge? Does he want to get into that lifestyle to avenge his
Yeah.
sister, or who knows what the cycle had initiated just there seeing that? So
Wow, and it's interesting that you make that connection, want to avenge his sister, because what does that sound like? That sounds a lot like Tariq, and how, he got thrown into a lot of what he's doing now, and
hmm
is also in his show, and in his seasons facing the consequences of even that very moment. So
Yeah.
Definitely making a lot of parallels, and it will be interesting to see, exactly now how this will unravel.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, want to transition to some themes or like symbols that you saw like within this episode, because definitely always loaded with all in every episode. But what I saw specifically in this one, and what I want to point out, is the theme of alliances and rivalries. So, in a way, because it's not just about power all the time. It's about who you can trust, and who you don't, who you can work with and who you can't. So,
Mm.
what is your take on that? Like, how do you view the value of alliances and or the danger of a particular rivalry?
I mean, that's a good question. Some of the things I noticed in this episode in particular, that um the dynamic between protection and trying to play somebody, like family members, they tried to protect one another. For example, Diamond and Jay, and the father with his children, he's trying to protect them. In both examples, they're trying to protect each other, but they're also trying to use each other too. And
Yeah.
so it's like, to a certain extent, you feel like you can trust family, but then still in the back of your head, you're like, okay, are they trying to play me? Like, this is my own father, but he's using me to sell faulty drugs. And then on the Diamond and Jay aspect, it's like, this is my brother, it's my blood, who I grew up with, but I mean, we've done some shady stuff to each other in the past, and they highlighted that in this episode. They ran a list down of what each of them did to each other.
Hmm.
So it's like, alliances run as far as, to the point where they some people are getting taken advantage of at the end of the day.
Hmm.
But I mean, family is family, and that comes with the territory sometimes. But like Diamond made a point, he's like, because Jay was like, you chose Tommy over me. He goes, I chose the bag. And it's like, ooh. So I don't know. I see a lot of alliances here, but I also see the dynamic of, how can I get what I need and
Yeah.
use those alliances to my advantage.
Gotcha. No, that makes a lot of sense. But because do you think that an alliance can occur without manipulation? Or is that just how in this show and how the characters are and just the environment that they in, that manipulation is almost goes hand in hand
I
with
almost feel like human nature,
Mm,
unfortunately, at least in this episode and what I've seen in the past power episodes, people use their alliances for their advantage. Even so far as with Jay and his girlfriend, or who he's dating at the time, the boxer,
mhm,
she's helping him, giving him money, giving him what she's hearing on the street, and he's returning the favor, with intimacy, or with physical um intimacy. And it's like, he's using her, she's using him, but I don't see a dynamic yet in this episode or this season where someone's not getting something out of it. I don't see a peer alliance.
hmm. That's interesting. And I definitely think that that has to deal with their environment and just being in survival mode.
Hmm.
Like, I don't have the option really to fully trust you or to fully like engage with you, possibly in a way that I may want to. Like, I do want to, have closer relationships, or, like I do want to, be able to trust you with my thoughts and feelings and things like that. But at the same time, kind of what Tommy kept alluding to in this episode is that we are drug dealers. Like, we have to understand, like I wake up every day with the thought of death on my mind, because it's a very real consequence that can happen
Mm-hmm.
just being simply involved in this business. And so, with that being said, it's like, oh, they're in survival mode
Hmm.
for, 99% of their existence, and
Yeah.
especially in this show. And so when you're like pushed to that limit, or like when you have to think about your livelihood, a lot of things that could be useful or could be helpful, kind of fall by the wayside, like trust or, like having like a healthy alliance and a good partnership per se. But when one is trying to get ahead of the other or one is trying to get their resources, it's like that dynamic just shifts very quickly to I need to now use you, like you were saying, or I need to get something for you because I ultimately will need this for my own livelihood or my own survival.
Well, given what you just said, I kind of take back my statement thinking about the different alliances. And I think this is why Liliana and Gloria's death has been so hard on Tommy and Vic, is because they did have a undying loyalty to them, and their
Yeah,
alliance seemed pure. And at least
yeah,
Liliana's to Tommy, because she had
yeah.
nothing else. And so I think that's what hurt Tommy the most. That's why he's still grieving her so bad. And same with
Mhm.
um Gloria with Vic, like they were gonna leave, and try to start a new life. Like she really put her trust in him. And so yeah, I think when someone's loyal to that deeply and they're not getting anything else out of it, look at the consequences of it in this lifestyle.
Mhm. Wow, that is true, especially in terms of like Liliana and Tommy, where they built that level of intimacy, so that way a lot of the survival like aspects are kind of met. Like they can look out for one another, and so it kind of just alleviates
Hmm.
some of that pressure that comes with when you don't trust someone fully
Hmm.
or when like you can't work with them. It's like that added layer of pressure was relieved within that relationship, so it was pure and like helpful to see. And like you said, like why the grieving process for that is a lot harder because in a way like they needed it, like they needed those partnerships and that space to share what's really going on. But now have gone back to like, well, now I have to put my guard back up and now I have to
No out.
stay hard, yeah, like no
Hmm.
outlet. And so that brings up a good point too, like when you're in a healthy alliance like that offers you the space to really like grow.
Hmm.
And but when without it, it's like you're going to stay stifled or you're going to stay worried, defensive, just
Hmm.
all these things that can just block what um, what true progress and growth can really look like.
Yeah, because Tommy's such a hothead and he's ready to go. Liliana was the only person that could slow him down, say, let's think about this. Like, what's up? She encouraged him, she poured into him. And that's something
Mhm.
he's missing now. And you can see that in his actions again.
Yeah, and interesting that you bring that up because once again, Diamond is now almost trying to fill that role
Hmm.
that Liliana did and that Ghost did in the past. Like trying to calm Tommy down. It's it's hard to to calm Tommy the Terminator down. Like when he has an idea, he has to like follow through. And he made that very clear. Like this is who I am, and if someone does this, I do this. There's no in between. There's nothing else I can do about that. If you don't like that program, like then you can dismiss yourself. But it's like he like since Liliana's death, it's like he's possibly even putting up that guard now with Diamond, even
Hmm.
though Diamond is presenting himself to want to be a true partner to Tommy. Like he introduces Tommy as his partner, to every like associate and things like that. They're like they have to be in conversation with, especially with Miguel. Like he
Right.
introduces him as his partner. Like he
Hmm.
does want to, in a way, see him as an equal, want to be able to trust him. But I think that may have Tommy jaded right now.
And Tommy might
And
have in the back of his mind, Diamond still has a brother and that he still
yeah,
has to no matter what. And so Liliana had nobody, you know,
mhm,
and so her loyalty shifted quickly to Tommy. And I felt it. I was hurt when she died. I was hurt.
yeah,
I said, dang, Tommy really, because when Tommy loves, he loves and he's
yeah,
loyal. And
yes,
so was she. Once they got past their, are you trying to kill me? After that,
mhm,
they were loyal. And that's
mhm.
why her death kind of hit.
Yeah, because That's interesting. Like, because even the grandma described both Liliana and, well, as Tommy, but Liliana can follows this sort of storyline, anyways, where it's like they have nothing, so they
Hmm.
like they have nothing to lose, and how Miguel was saying that. Well, no, I don't believe he was talking to his grandma during this scene, or was he when he was
Miguel
explaining where like that can be valuable, that they have no, I think he was talking to an associate, Miguel, when he
oh,
was describing Tommy, saying
yeah,
like, yes, they don't have anything to live for, or like they don't have anything to lose, and that can either be a danger for them or it could be valuable, it could be an asset.
yeah,
um, and in a way, it's like he was trying to use that as a way that he's going to use Tommy, but not even knowing that Tommy's already has a plan to use him. So
mhm,
once again, with the alliance piece, like,
yeah.
oh, I see the value in you because I want you to, yeah, I want to manipulate this in some way, in some degree, and
And Miguel,
not even realizing that they're now manipulating each other.
mhm,
And now we'll see, uh, with the whole plan of, Tommy and Diamond pulling
was nice.
killing the Serbs and then framing them
Yeah,
for taking uh, their
right.
product. So we'll see how all of that plays out, like if it does ever come back to them, to
Mhm.
Miguel, that that was Tommy that orchestrated that whole plan.
I mean, Miguel, he almost seemed like he envied that Tommy didn't have anything to lose because Miguel has quite a bit to lose. You saw
Yeah.
how Miguel's boss brought up his sister, his
Yep.
grandmother. Like he has people in his life. He's diabetic. He has weaknesses and soft spots where people can get to. Tommy not so much. And so, and like you
Hmm.
said in the beginning of the episode, he Tommy did allude to, I know I could die. It's just a part of it. But I feel like Miguel has a little bit more to lose. Tommy, all Holly, everybody in Tommy's life, his father, ghosts, quote unquote, all his close people, his unborn child, gone.
His
Liliana gone.
father, like,
Yeah,
the
gone.
list truly goes on. I'm not gonna lie. Dang, Tommy, you
Yeah,
always got the short end of
it's sad.
every stick that was ever handed to him. And that always made me feel bad. But
I know.
yes, and once again, it has shaped his character for
Mhm.
sure. And, this is why we know Tommy to be the Tommy that we know. It's just at the same time, like, when someone's there to try to instruct you or to try to give you some wisdom, sometimes that can go in one ear and out the other, where it could have been helpful in the situation, but just because he's so jaded and so closed off and just, hurt,
Yeah.
grieving too. Like, his grief definitely looks different than Victor's, but at the same time, he is still grieving, loved ones and things,
Mm-hmm.
or people that have passed as well. So
You made a great point because the nurse, when she was healing Tommy's wound, she asked him, "Are you in pain?" Tommy said, "No." She said, "Yeah, you are." And I think it was deeper than just the bullet wound. She can see Tommy because she keeps warning him, "Get out of this." And Tommy's like, "No." And she's like, "There's something different with you. Like, you're in a deeper pain than we all realize."
yeah, when you have to almost disassociate yourself with what's
Yeah.
going on for,
Mm-hmm.
almost peace of mind. Whereas, like, we see it so visibly with Victor, and,
Mm-hmm.
drinking, acting
Wow.
erratically, just, yeah, wild,
Wow.
wild, to say the least. But like, you can see the obvious signs, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, there's pros and cons to both. Because at the same time, Tommy is still able to show some sort of restraint and be able to think clearly, whereas like Victor is leaned too heavily right now, like in his feelings, to really, have a clear perspective on like how to move forward or like what to do. And now even we see like his plan. To even work with his dad is convoluted for him to get revenge on his dad. So
That's God.
yeah, that brings up a good point too, just pain overall
Mm-hmm.
and how that drives alliances. Either it wants to drive you closer to someone to either get revenge, or pulls you further away. So
Pain can influence a lot of decisions sometimes.
Yes. So we'll definitely continue to see, you know, how Victor continues to unravel because he's clearly not thinking too
Uh,
far, too much into his plan, but, you know, just so mad where it almost doesn't matter to him. Like,
mm-hmm.
you bring up a good point in terms of loyalty because once again, he was very loyal to Gloria and he loved her. And so he is now going to show his loyalty by getting the revenge on his dad. So
Yep. Heavy.
yeah, so that brings us into a good segue um, into our character analysis and seeing the lens of the characters through different guises. So, on the last episode, we talked about the characters and the viewpoint of their temperament and how they respond to different situations. But I'm curious to see like what you think in terms of the characters from a desperation piece. So, how are they evolving out of desperation?
Hmm. Well, the first character that comes to mind when you say desperation, for some reason, is Jay. He's down
Mhm.
bad. Like, he's paying the Serbs, he's paying Miguel's group. He doesn't have product. His team doesn't trust him.
Yeah.
He only generally, to me, has that boxer girl in his corner for
Mhm.
now, you know?
Yeah.
And him and his brother on rocky terms. He, to me, I feel like he's willing to do anything at this point,
Mhm.
and it's a little worrisome because I'm hoping he can team back with his brother, get back on board, because even the cops realized CBI had a rift in it, and you can
Mhm.
see when people are, no longer united force, what happens. Yeah, so Jay, I think he's looking at, man, I wanted to take over, I wanted to be the boss, but I don't know how, I don't have the resources. And so I feel like he's willing to do anything at this point. So we'll
Mhm.
see. Um, I think, well, we highlighted already Victor's desperation to kind of avenge Gloria's death. He just seems lost to me. I wouldn't say desperation, I see loss with Victor.
Mhm.
I see actually the father. He's desperate right now.
Yeah.
That whole thing with Dublin, he got him shook. They said when Claudia was with that guy trying to get information, he's like, we will chop his head off. Like, he knows what he's getting into, the father.
Oh, for
He
sure.
doesn't know how to push the product, the new age product now. So he doesn't have as much pull as he used to. So he's desperate. When you're desperate enough to use your kids, like, come on, you're telling your kids to sell bad product. It's like you're getting desperate. You know what's at your end. And I don't know if I would call Tommy desperate. I feel like this is just his way of life now. This is just who he is, what it is. I don't see him doing nothing else. He's gonna, like you said, remain the same. And so I would say Jay and the father, to me, are the most desperate characters right now.
And Victor, that's interesting. For sure that you bring up Jenard in this aspect. I mean, we definitely saw this coming up from last episode where, they had to start a new crew. They have to, build everything back up because he doesn't have access and things like he did when he was working with CBI.
Mm-hmm.
And so with his character though, like his desperation almost too comes from like just a lack of love and
Mm-hmm.
support. Like it was sad when he was just telling Diamond, like, why didn't you choose me? Like, why
Yeah.
would you choose, some random man that just waltzes into our neighborhood, taking
Mm-hmm.
over our business or, wanting to infiltrate our business? Like, why didn't you choose me? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm I sacrificed my entire life for you, for this business. And at the end of the day, all of that just doesn't matter. And that I think has pushed him to make such rash decisions because he's great in terms of planning, in terms of strategizing, in terms of, corralling people for a purpose. It's just he's so like motivated right now by anger and for revenge, which is a common theme that continued to come up between the last two episodes. And I think what showcased for sure in this episode for Jenard was that I just feel the lack of support and the lack of love, and especially coming from Diamond, where it's like, you used to be someone I could wholeheartedly and heavily like rely on, and now, you know, I can't do that. And that is that has caused me to be in the position that I am now. And it's like, of course, Jenard still has to be held accountable, for
Yeah.
his actions, because of course he didn't have to do the things that he is doing, and could have kept an open mind in terms of Tommy joining them. But at the same time, I think that was what kind of came out, like the subliminal message of what he was trying to get at Diamond. Like, I just wanted you to choose me. Like, after all I've ever done for you,
Yeah.
like, at the end of the day, I just wanted it to be us, like, us against the world, whatever, however that comes, however that looks, just me and you, and not, someone kind of coming into that.
I think Jay got into his head when Diamond was away in prison, being the big man, but always knowing in the back of his mind Diamond was coming back. But he got a taste of the power, but he doesn't know how to maintain it
Mm,
and hold it. And so he still wants Diamond under him now because he held it down. He did hold it down for Diamond. He did.
yes, yeah,
When Diamond got out, he said, I want what I started back. Like,
yeah,
and rightfully so. But I mean, I feel like I would feel a way too if I held something down for somebody for that long and then they
yeah,
come back and then, like you said, choose somebody else, a stranger at that. I would feel a way. I get
yeah.
it. I get it.
Yeah, so I think that that point brought us back to, once again, humanizing Jenard and
Hmm.
seeing exactly like where he's coming from or where his anger is coming from. It's not unwarranted. It's not coming from just anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, he is doing this for a reason. And I think that reason became a little bit more clear. And so, and also continues to allude to like, will this really last? Are they really rivals? Or, do they just both equally want love?
Yeah.
But at the same time able to reach their goals, like, because Diamond said, like, we do have goals, like we do have a purpose, like we can't just continue to lean so heavily into our feelings that we lose sight of what is really going on
Yeah.
in the back end. And then you definitely touched on the point with Victor as well, and where his desperation is going. And I think he's just the clearest example of, willing to do any and anything, and everything
Yeah.
for revenge, or, for almost some sort of just peace of mind. Like, he sees his sister trying to, get him to align with him, to create an alliance, but ultimately to manipulate him. He sees even his father doing this exact same thing. So once again, even for him, he's like, is anybody going to come and just be honest, be a little bit truthful, just want to,
We be normal.
yeah, want to have some sort of rapport with one another that doesn't, once again, have to deal with me being taken advantage of. He's like, where is the love? And then that definitely has to hurt even more, coming from his own father and his sister. What? Because we can also see the desperation also in Claudia too, wanting to getting a taste of power with Dahlia,
Hmm.
seeing, like, okay, like if I have my own business, like what that truly looks like, and for that to kind of be snatched from her, it's like, wow, that was like the first opportunity that I had to really showcase my own independence. And, it was stripped from me. And like she said to Brandon, the guy that she's messing with now in the show to get information, like, I'm also willing to do any and everything for what I want.
Yeah.
And how her desperation for that power that she had, and that she wanted to hold on to so badly from like when she was in charge with Dahlia. It's like now we're starting to see her character unravel a bit, and where her desperation is leading. It was interesting to see Walter, though, you know in this desperate state. He
Hmm.
portrayed as the patriarch, the strongest one of them
Right.
all. Like, I could take it. It doesn't matter. But it angered him in a way for him to have to go to Claudia, which was interesting. Like it angered him that it's like I'm at this point where I have to ask a woman,
Hmm.
to kind of come and clean up my mess.
Yeah.
And just once again, like his the patriarchy within him that he would rather, back out of his agreement with Claudia to go back to Victor just because he cannot, you know,
Fathom.
fathom a woman in power, even if it's his own daughter, which
And the
is
sad part is her blood. You know how he made that part? He's like, Victor, your blood is running through, like my blood is running through you.
Mhm.
So is Claudia. Like,
Yes.
and so I think so Claudia knows who she is. She
Mhm.
knows where she comes from. She knows what she wants. Me, I think Victor doesn't know who he is. He
No.
never wanted this lifestyle. He never wanted this. It it was quite clear when he was ready to run off with Gloria. He
Mhm.
never wanted this lifestyle. I don't see Claudia running off, leaving this lifestyle. She's in it just as deep as Tommy. That's why
Mhm.
Tommy could connect with her. He
Yeah.
saw that. He was like, "Well, I know you about this."
Yeah,
The
level of
father,
respect. Yeah.
can't, like you said, the dynamic with her being a woman, but yeah, like you said, giving Victor that chance, knowing he doesn't want it, it's like
Knowing he's not competent
he can't.
for the role, like knowing he can't handle it, but just like you can't get out of your own way because that's something
Mhm.
that came up during our first recap for episode one, where it's like, are you able to adapt? Are you able to, you know, change? And how being able to adapt, furthers the progress, furthers the growth. And how the dad is just once again so stuck in his ways that he doesn't even know he walked into a potential trap. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that in itself will be interesting to see how that continues to unravel. But at the same time, it's like it will be interesting to see if Victor can really pull it off because it's like I know you're
I think he can
talking.
pull it off for the simple fact that now his new motive is to avenge Gloria. That's the only
Mhm.
reason.
Yeah,
So I think he will.
and now he's in that position, like how we've been characterizing Tommy and Liliana,
Mhm.
where they have nothing. He has nothing else. Like he has
Yeah.
truly nothing else to live for, or like nothing else that is motivating him. And now that he's in that place, it's like now it will be interesting to see, what competency like you do have, like to potentially run this business,
Yeah.
and how you're gonna lead it astray, which will suck. Well, at least for the Flynn family,
Yeah.
but it,
But like
yeah,
Tommy really has nobody. Do you? Well, actually, no. Tommy does have some people now. His
yes,
brother, his nephew, his mother still.
hmm
So,
and that's what
hmm,
um I don't think anybody that he's like associated with in terms of like Miguel or like CBA, like that they have full like understanding
yeah.
of. So yes, yeah, in a way, like overall he's not as close to them, but I think he's trying to like build a relationship with his new family, and definitely knows he has a level of respect and love for his brother and his
Hmm.
nephew. His mom,
That's but
yeah, they have a very toxic relationship
yeah.
that that's another story for another day. But just at the same time, like you can see like the light in terms of uh, Tommy developing these close relationships, but just once again, like anytime
He's
someone
keeping it in
gets
that
close
because he
to
knows.
Tommy, like they end up dying or they
Yeah.
end up
Hmm.
it just
And
doesn't end well for them. And
I think
so
that's why he's keeping them at bay because he knows
yeah,
the result to anyone that gets too close to him.
oh yeah, for sure. And that will turn out good. But now it's like with the attention that's going to come from um,
Task force.
the passing of the child, he's going to have so many eyes on him. And it's like at the same time, they just did, the stunt with Diamond and then to frame the Serbs
Yeah.
for Miguel. So it's like there's going to be so much more attention on
Hmm.
him, attention that I don't think he was expecting.
Right.
And how attention can be good, but it also
Not
can
in his life, not
specific, yeah,
lifestyle.
and not in this in his situation, in his environment,
Yeah.
not so much. Um,
Not to mention the parole officer is on Diamond, like for real. So that parole officer is gonna 100% team up with the task force with Tommy.
oh, and because like yeah, if they end up like convicting Tommy, like he's now you know, associating with, convicted. It's just gonna be so
Yep.
that's what came to mind when Tommy was in the barbershop and
Yep.
the parole officer was able to see. I was like, oh no,
Yep. He
I
can make.
never wanted them, him to know that they were associated with one another.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm.
uh,
And
I
I,
don't
that
know.
barbershop scene, how embarrassing. He's running a business, an establishment, and the parole officer had no tact. He came in there and said, "You need pretty much a urine sample." Like, that's so, it's like, way to keep someone down. It's like,
Hmm.
that was embarrassing. I felt secondhand embarrassment. And I was
Hmm.
like, you don't have to do that. You could have said, "Hey, I need to talk to you in the back," then say it. He did it right there to show that, hey, your barber is in some trouble. So
Yeah.
just another way how they showcase in this episode how the African American community, even if it's by other African Americans, are viewed.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. And, I think he has a bit of power and he's
Hmm.
definitely trying to exude that
Right.
in the utmost ways. And, just talking again about police relations, like,
Hmm.
and if you want, a better rapport with your, people that you're overseeing, like, you didn't have to approach him in
No.
that manner. Like, it was completely unwarranted, it was unnecessary. Um, and so yeah, it will be interesting to see how even their dynamic continues to unravel because he looks like he's gonna be an issue, and if you're an issue for you can be an issue for Diamond, that's fine. But if you become an issue for Tommy,
Right.
you're gonna get taken out swiftly, like
Yeah.
without question. So it's
Yeah.
almost like he has no idea, who he's talking to, like who you're dealing with, like, and all of that comes into play, which I think that the cop in that first scene was really trying to make a point. Like, if you don't understand who you're speaking with or, how the dynamics really work, then
And
like you're never going to get the answers or, the
mhm.
results that you want to see.
And that was the big issue with why the task force couldn't get off the ground in the first place, because that lieutenant or the people behind it, they were like, hey, we don't want the community to feel surveillance, because that's what the cops were doing. But
Hmm.
she brought up a good point. She's like, this actually, though, if it's done right, the task force, it's to get these gangs off the street and to lead to like more the cartel, more drugs going in the community. It can help if it's done right. So, and that's goes back to what we talked about in the beginning, the police training. So if they
Hmm.
do this task force right, it's supposed to help the community, not harm it.
Right. But once again, I think ideally for
Right.
the police force to think in that way, but for Tommy and them thinking of just their livelihood, survival, um, wise, like they're in a whole different other kind of mindset. And so, to see those try to be mirrored together or
Yeah.
married together, it's not going to
Right.
coincide. But just overall, to speak to your point, like there is a way um, and a method that we can go about this, and
Hmm.
it doesn't have to be excessive force. Once again, like it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
excessive or in the ways that we're seeing and operating in
Hmm.
right now in today's age. So
Yeah.
definitely make lots of great points for our characters. So definitely excited to see how that continues to play out even during the next episode. Speaking of that too, like what are your predictions or what do you think you will see either in the next episode or even for the rest of the season?
Oh boy, I'm just so caught up in these episodes. I'm not even foreseeing, but let me think. I definitely see Diamond and Jay getting back together. I think they're going to become a united force because so many. I noticed that all of these different drug dealer groups, they're all different races, which is interesting. And they still, in this episode, even alluded to saying to the CBI and the treason group, they're like those people on the South Side. Like there's still like racism in within drug dealer groups. It's like they automatically wanted to sell those faulty pills to the South Side, to those people. It's like,
Mhm.
and so I see them coming together because in order to go against any of those other drug dealers, they're gonna have to be a united front. And I see Tommy getting his revenge for Liliana. He's not gonna stop. We know this. We know this. And I'm curious how the Flint family's gonna pan out. I think Walter's gonna have to die. I think that's just the only way the brother and sister can come together.
Mhm.
So those are kind of my big predictions for this.
That you bring a good point too about Walter, because he even alluded to that. He's like, I don't have much time left because
Hmm.
we do know that he is sick
You're right.
as well. And so it's just almost now a matter of how. Will
Hmm.
it be Victor? Will it be some other way? And how all of that's definitely going to play out. I definitely want to see, also where Claudia goes. Like,
Hmm.
what's going to be her next move now? Like, who is
Yeah.
she going to align herself with? And, how is she going to infiltrate? Because she definitely has, the intelligence, the competency to really pull this off. And
Right.
so I want to see like now who she'll be aligned with. And I definitely agree. Tommy he's definitely going to get revenge for Liliana.
Yeah.
He won't.
But
He's not going to
cliffhanger,
rest until
it's
he does.
Claudia. Sorry, spoiler alert. We all know
Yeah.
Claudia
Oh,
killed
and that was an
Lily.
interesting point when Tommy addressed Victor, and he was
Hmm.
like, "Do you know who it was?" And he was like, "No." And then he asked the same thing because who was it? It was he because Tommy knew something for Vic that he asked, and it was also Claudia. Now I'm losing my train of thought with that. Who was it?
Was it that same scene? Was it that same
Yes,
scene?
it was that same scene. So because once again, Claudia killed Liliana,
Right. Facts.
but Oh, he asked Tommy who killed the scientist, the chemist,
Right, right, right.
and it was also
Claudia.
Claudia.
So
So
yeah.
now that she also too has a lot of targets on her back, like how's
Mhm.
she going to survive that?
She might
I'm
team up
low
with
key rooting
Dublin.
for Claudia. Like
She might team
I
up with
want her.
Dublin. She might.
Whoa,
And that will be the wildest thing.
whoa,
Yeah.
that would be epic.
Yeah.
Wow, okay, I actually want that
Yeah.
prediction to come true.
She's gonna
Whoa,
need some help.
for sure. And they are already, on their last leg with them
Yeah.
anyways. And, maybe they might be on board with Claudia taking
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
and
I feel like
aren't
it's
going to
just
be
the
so stuck in
dad
their
that didn't
ways
wanna.
like the dad is.
Right. He's too traditional. I
Yeah,
think Dublin, if they see that she has the capability, they might be with it. That
yes.
would be lit.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm geek. Now I need to see how that pans out.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm riding for Claudia too. Of course I'm riding for Tommy. That's just a no
Right.
brainer. But I'm riding for Claudia too.
And
Like
he wrote
she
for
has so
Claudia
much
too.
stacked against her,
Right.
and she has to do all of this on her own.
Hmm.
Like Victor constantly can rely on his dad to bail him out to
Right.
hold his hand, and he
Right.
just gives Claudia just such a hard way to go. And interesting point where they were like, or Victor was saying that she's just like him. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's it's like you have a twin like in your daughter, and
Right.
you don't even know, like, all your treacherous ways are now her treacherous
Yeah.
ways. And I
Yeah.
don't know if you're ready for that smoke, but
Yeah.
I hope you're prepared because Dublin's gonna come collect, and she doesn't mind partnering with them because they're a powerful group. So
See.
I'm excited now. And I want them to release the rest of the season so I can see if that happens. But yay, that is a wrap for today's recap for Hot Nerd Nation. So thank you again to the Hot Nerd Chimana. Sorry. for exploring the ins and out of Power Book 4, Season 2, Episode 2. Uh, Please come back and be a guest once more. I loved hearing your perspective. So it is always open for you to come back and want to discuss. But yes, so thank you again to everyone who chimed in. Don't forget to chime back in next week for our season, or not season, but episode 3 recap. And remember to hit the like button, drop a comment, and subscribe for our next recaps. But
Bye.
thank you so much, and we're out.